Born to conquer battlefields, left to rust in silence for half a century. Today, Fix My Auto brings it back to life. Hey everyone, welcome back to Fix My Auto. Today we've got a true Soviet beast, the MAZ 537 transport truck. Built in 1981, it's been sitting silent for over 25 years. The truck was missing its steering wheel, so after they towed it near home, they found another one. But installing it wasn't easy, just a bit of a headache. At that point, they pulled out what they called the universal key, basically hammering it down so it could lock in place. As long as it held tight enough to steer for now, that was good enough. But in the end, welding it was the only real fix. Some of you might be wondering, couldn't they just use a wrench instead? Well, here's the thing. This steering system takes huge force. If you used a wrench, it would slip, maybe even strip the gears. So when it comes to actually driving, that trick wouldn't help much. The safest move is still securing the wheel properly. Right now, this truck can't even start. The only way to move it is by towing it back home. At first sight, I honestly thought, a vehicle from 1981? Surely it must have been out of production long ago. But after digging into the records, I found the truth. This Soviet beast was actually built all the way until 1990. The prototype of this truck first appeared in 1958. By 1960, it was already in mass production. And just 2 years later, in 1962, it officially entered service with the Soviet Army. The MAZ 537 itself carried forward the technology of its predecessor, the 535. But it wasn't just a copy, it came with significant upgrades. Most notably, the engine. The old D12A375 from the 535 was replaced with the more powerful D12A525. That's a massive V12 diesel powerhouse, pushing out 525 horsepower. When they inspected the cab, though, they quickly noticed something was missing: the manual fuel pump. Between these two pipes, you can clearly see where that part should have been. Luckily, these guys know this beast inside out. They recognized right away it was the hand pump that was gone. And right here, you can also spot the fuel shutoff valve. On the bolts around it, there was still that strong smell of diesel. So their next step is obvious. They'll have to track down a replacement hand pump. Parts like this can actually be salvaged from other old vehicles. And I remember, these two bloggers once had another truck before. This isn't the first Soviet giant they've tried to bring back to life. Underneath here is the battery compartment. All the batteries are long gone, but the connecting cables are still hanging in place. Structurally, the truck is surprisingly complete. Not too many components are missing. According to their story, this particular machine was originally an experimental vehicle. Its engine barely ran at all, only around 300 hours of total operation. Right here, you can see the heavy-duty towing mount. Remember, this MAZ was built as a 1,000-class transport truck. It was designed to haul massive flatbed trailers, move tanks, and even carry missile systems when needed. The guys gave it a quick inspection of all the major systems, checking the gearbox, the drive shaft, and the transfer case. But while looking, they noticed something odd. Some of the pipelines were missing. Others had been cut or damaged. Many of you might be wondering, what exactly is missing here? Honestly, even we can't say for sure. But judging from the layout, it looks a lot like part of the air pressure system. This copper tube, for example, is snapped clean off right at the connector, which makes it very tricky to repair. On this side, there are also several pipes missing. Still, when you look at the whole vehicle, the missing parts are actually not that many. A few replacement pipes from a donor truck should solve the problem. Don't think retired military parts are impossible to find. In their region, it's actually surprisingly easy to get hold of them. Now let's take a look at the engine. No need for a long introduction here. This monster delivers 525 horsepower. But the most fascinating detail is this. It's basically a tank engine. That means when it comes to maintenance, it's incredibly convenient. The repair process is nearly identical to working on a tank. So in terms of spare parts and logistical support, this truck becomes much easier to keep alive. Here, they checked the engine oil, and you can see its condition is still pretty good, at least proving there are no major internal issues. The real problem right now is with the fuel system. Finally, here's the engine's identification plate. You can clearly see the markings, 12A and 525. De la Noidung Verdua. The scene shifts, and look, they've already found a donor vehicle, that white MAZ 537 right behind them. From this truck, they'll try to salvage any usable parts. It won't cover everything, but they'll dismantle it piece by piece to see what works. Here, they've already spotted the broken pipelines from earlier. These can be removed directly. On the other side, more pipelines are intact, and they carefully trace them along the original layout, pulling them out step by step. Now inside the engine bay, it's clear someone had stripped out quite a few parts before, including most of the fuel lines. Moving to the cabin, they discovered a seat cushion. The battery compartment was also empty. Still, they thought the blue cushion looked decent, so they kept it. The wooden frame beneath was surprisingly new. And then came a real find, a steering wheel. Sure, the plastic was a bit worn, but it was far better than their temporary fix, so they took it as well. The old one had been welded in place, but with a little grinding and cutting, it could still be removed. Here's a look at all the parts they managed to strip off, some fuel lines, cooling lines, and other key pieces. Next, they headed to a warehouse where they came across what looked like a hand fuel pump. Even the seller wasn't completely sure it was the exact right model, but judging by its size and design, it seemed to match up pretty well. It also looked identical to the pictures they had found online. Most importantly, this one was clearly an unused stock part, basically brand new. The plan was simple: fix the pump between these two ends, hook it into the fuel line, and secure it tightly with the mounting bracket on top. Once in place, they could manually pump fuel into the engine. To test it, they tried pressing the hand pump here at the pipe, and fuel sprayed right out. But in fact, at this junction, there was also a filter. So instead of sending raw fuel directly to the engine, they connected a bottle as an outlet. This way, not only could they collect the fuel, but also check if there was any water mixed in. With the naked eye, it's easy to see, because water and oil naturally separate into layers. That trick also helps them understand the actual state of the fuel tank. Remember, this truck's tank is massive, and there's no way to see the bottom just by looking inside. At least for now, the fuel looked decent. So the next step, hook up the batteries and see what happens. Some of you might be curious, what's the actual starting voltage for this beast? Looking at the entire battery compartment, it's clear that the original layout was designed to hold even more cells than what we see now. And then, finally, a sign of life. From the exhaust, smoke started puffing out, a clear signal that the fuel system and the combustion process were both slowly coming back to life. The giant machine finally shows signs of life. From the exhaust pipe, smoke begins to drift out, a dramatic signal that its fuel system and combustion are slowly but surely coming back to life. But hold on, the first attempt isn't perfect. They decide to tighten the battery connections and try again. Most likely, the earlier failure was caused by weak voltage, which kept the starter motor from delivering its full power. At last, the beast roars to life and can start normally. The next step, restoring its cooling system. That mainly means reconnecting the water hoses and filling the massive radiator to the top. From here, things become a lot simpler. But of course, fresh diesel is still needed. The old fuel inside the tank has aged for decades, so they mix in clean diesel to bring new energy into the engine. Now they're preparing to install the cooling pipes, but when trying to push the connector in, it crumpled and refused to slide. So they gave it a quick spray of loosening agent. This is actually a little trick you can learn. Just like when fitting plastic tubing at home, sometimes you soak it in water for easier fitting. Same principle. The spray acts as a lubricant, and even though a tiny bit of oil goes inside, it won't affect the overall cooling cycle. The amount is almost nothing. For coolant, they simply poured in regular tap water. That's fine, as long as you remember one thing in winter: drain it completely, or the engine block can freeze and crack apart. Especially in the north, where winters come early and brutal, forgetting to drain water is a common disaster. Every year, countless engines are ruined this way. You might say, but our cars use antifreeze now. True, modern vehicles all do. But for farm machinery or old diesel engines with evaporative cooling, if you forget to drain them, congratulations, you'll probably be shopping for a brand new engine. Now the cooling system has been restored, and at least for the moment, no leaks can be seen. Of course, whether it leaks after the engine runs, that still has to be checked on the spot. For now, they can move on to adding diesel fuel, and the amount poured in is no joke. This single barrel looks like more than 20 liters. For a beast like this, don't even bother calculating fuel economy. Roughly speaking, it gulps 1 liter for every single kilometer. And if you're driving off-road or towing heavy military equipment, that fuel burn climbs even higher. Interestingly, the diesel they poured out looked slightly green. From the filler neck, the liquid had a strange tint. Many viewers might say, hey, look how clear their diesel is. Honestly, I don't even drive a diesel car myself, so I can't compare it with domestic diesel quality. But a lot of truck drivers complain that the fuel available isn't really great. Maybe it's because engines keep running on low-quality fuel for years, and that causes mechanical issues, which in turn makes people blame the fuel itself. I do know one thing, though. Many veteran drivers prefer to buy from smaller, trusted suppliers. Over here, they're checking the liquid level, basically mean the height of the diesel inside the tank. But the dipstick is shaking a lot, so through the camera lens, it doesn't look very clear. According to the blogger's final test, though, the level has actually gone up by almost half. At first, it stayed only at the lowest bright mark, and now it's nearly reaching the upper line. When they measure by hand, this simple method is called one card, which means the small gap between two fingers. The copper tube here was badly deformed, so they simply cut it off. And when choosing a new connector, they only kept the front section. For the middle part, they decided to replace it with a rubber hose, making a flexible connection. It's basically an alternative solution, not fancy, but as long as it works, that's all that matters. The pipelines underneath follow pretty much the same logic as before. Nothing too complicated, just a matter of checking and reconnecting. Now Sanya is eager to start the truck. People around ask, should he move forward or maybe backward? Go on, start it up, they shout, half joking and calling him a little monkey. So Sanya engages the front wheels, and there it is. The vehicle begins to roll, everyone laughing again. Look at that monkey. Watch the tires, watch the tires. At this moment, the cables are connected and the machine gets its first bit of motion. They let the vehicle move forward and backward just a little, simply to confirm the overall condition. But after only a short movement, something doesn't sound right. There's a sharp hiss, air leaking out from somewhere. They immediately start searching for the source. Honestly, that's nothing unusual. Whether it's a rubber hose or a metal pipe, after sitting idle for so many years, and with people constantly tinkering around, it's almost inevitable that some weak spot will get damaged. Listening carefully at this spot, they realize the hissing noise is actually coming from somewhere above. So the search continues upward, and sure enough, the main issue is an air leak. Because of that leak, the air tank simply cannot hold pressure, and no matter how long you wait, the pressure gauge will never climb. The only way it would keep working is if the compressor runs constantly at full power. And if the crack or hole grows any larger, then even that won't help. The air will escape faster than it can be compressed. Down below, another small issue is spotted, an oil leak. But for now, it's not critical. The vehicle can still move a short distance. So they decide to stop at a safe place and leave the deeper restoration for later. With that, today's video is almost at its end. If you enjoyed this restoration journey, please remember to like, comment, follow, and save the video. Thank you all very much for watching. What do you think about this massive machine? And if you happen to own a scale model of it, why not share it in the comments below? This beast is back to life. What could be next? Hit subscribe now and pick another video to keep the adventure going.